Well, welcome back to the, I believe, eighth part of the Carework lecture of General Economics course. In this part, we will look to the way we can give a monetary value to the time spent for the childcare. And here we have said that lost income was one method, although, of course, that lost income might change from person to person, although the work done might be same. So replacement cost is the method that is used more often because it is, we might say, more suitable for this case. Although when we are talking on the replacement cost, in case of childcare, we have two types of replacement options. One is actually just assuming childcare worker, the work done by the child is performed by someone who is not skilled. So in that case, we will just pay to that person the minimum possible wage, which might be the minimum wage, by the way, and just value the time that way. Alternative is assuming all the activities are done by the people, especially active care hours, are basically is spent by people who are expertise in the activities they are doing. In that case, for example, the cooking should be done or done someone with experience in it, or activities spent by child, for example, playing should be done by someone who is specialized in childcare. And at time in this way, I mean, in this case, of course, we should ask whether the mothers have the specialization, whether they have this specific type of knowledge. So whether this specialized work is a proper assumption in case of childcare is a question. And if we think that this specialized work is the replacement of the childcare done by the parents, in that case, we should basically put the wage of these workers who are skilled in those activities. In that case, of course, the wages will go up. And then, of course, active work hours and passive care work hours should be relative wages for the people who are who would directly engage in child care activities with children, or just supervising the children in narrow sense, as I have told you. It's also possible that some childcare is done by the relatives. The relatives also add value to the economic system if they care for the child of their, let's say, their relatives, of course, in that case. However, that cost is not the cost of the parents, of course, but still it's a cost in terms of social sense. You can already see actually the overall valuation here, and this is the valuation basically done with a lower bound imputation, which means actually you are looking to the case where you assumed all the work is done by an unskilled person. If you do that, well, the cash expenditure, this is the money that is spent. We have already have the same numbers in the previous part. We have seen those numbers. And these are the time. Time values are higher in actually both the single parent households and the two parent households. As you see, actually, the value of time is higher for the young children, mostly, and mostly, I mean, in case of single parent household at the 3-5 age, they got the highest amount, but then they decrease. Monetary values is, I mean, more or less stable in case of, as we have seen in the two parent households, increasing to some extent up to age 6-8 in case of one parent households. And here you can see the total expenditure. So highest amount is for the two parent households, the age 0-2. For the one parent households, it is the age 6 and 8. And you can also see the relative time cost as percentage of total cost. So at age 02, for example, 64.8% of the cost is time costs. So they are not monetary, direct monetary costs. I mean, parents are not paying money, but they are spending time. And if you evaluate that time, in that case, it would be 64% of the total cost, almost twice of the amount they are paying in terms of costs. And in case of two parents household, actually, time costs are slightly higher than the monetary cost compared with the one parent households. And one thing is, of course, in the one parent household, the total expenditure, total amount of time and money that could be spent for the child is smaller compared with two parent households, which might mean that, of course, we don't know the quality of the care, but which might still mean that the children in the one parent household are getting less time and less monetary expenditure spent for them. Well, let's look on the article also the lower bound and upper bound expenditures, how they are calculated. And here you can see the lower bound expenditure. Again, there is a separate value for the case when there is a passive care, which is $5.15 per hour for the year. Of course, this is written, and 7.33 hour is for the passive active care, when you spend time with an activity for them with the child. And all those expenses you have seen in previous was the yearly expenses. Here you see the weekly expenses. So $62 is the monetary value of the passive childcare, and $248 active childcare for two-person household, for example. And here you see the upper bound numbers. This is the case when we are putting the specialized work wages. The passive care is same, 5.15, because I mean you don't need skill. You don't have a specific skill for just supervising the child who is doing another activity or just sleeping. But you very well have a significant increase in the amount that is spent for parental care activities, which has become now 13.74 hours. So now that value, for example, for a child between 0.2 in a household with single parent has increased from $248 to $458, almost doubled for a week. Well, and the total value, for example, is, and here you are also looking to the, you can also see basically the care that is spent by, let's say, other family members, and you also decrease part of the time if you are spending some time together with the sibling, the other child. That means actually, of course, the same time is spent for two children, which might increase the intensity of the care, by the way, but still we might say maybe the intensity increase not too much, so maybe we might count it as if we are caring for one child, but now we are caring for two children, so per child we need to subtract the time spent for the sibling, half of the time at least. So total value is, for example, again 0 to age for a two parents household, 310 for lower bound, and 520 for the upper bound. And that amount, as I said, decreases as the child grows up. To some extent, actually, the same trend is also the same trend is not exactly true for the single parent household, but you can also see the numbers for the single parent household. where actually at the ages 3.3 and 5 you have the highest number, and still at the ages 0.8, 6 and 8 you have a higher number compared with 0 and 2-year-old child. That's very much probably because the child needs more attention at an early age. You might just put the child to sleep or just leave it in the bed, and probably he won't get himself or herself, or she won't get herself into trouble. But it's not true for them. 6 and 3 and 8 years old, a child between 3 and 8 years old. Anyway, well, this is it, and this is I believe a very interesting application of the valuation of the unpaid work, how it can be done, and well, in the remaining time, this is the last Nancy Folbret text we were going through. In the next part, actually, we will look to the remaining time. Actually, we will look to the İlk article, where basically İlk starts looking the labor participation of the woman, which is not, which might not look as the same topic as the topic we are focused on in this lecture. However, she connects this with the childcare, and this is actually a nice connection. And then she discusses how childcare work will affect labor market and poverty in Turkey specifically. It's in my opinion, a very nice article. Actually, if I was able to do that, I would like to get her for the economy and policy seminars also. Although this year she was not able to come, maybe next year, assuming also we won't have trouble with caused by coronavirus, we might call her. So we still have some time. So in the remaining time, let's start looking to her article. So she starts her article by looking to the labor force participation of men and women. Let me get this up. If you look to the numbers, you can see all the way from 1988 to 2015, we have actually labor force participation rate in Turkey, well, slightly falling down from 60 to 50 and then rise up. And the ratio, actually, the labor force participation of the men has actually fallen down to some extent from 80 to 70. And this is not something unusual. This doesn't mean necessarily men are becoming less lazy, basically make their wives to work more. This might also mean that more men are spending their early adulthood in universities without getting any job, or they are able to they afford retiring. That might also mean that. But in case of women, we have already a low rate, 35% in 1988, to go all the way down to well, basically 25-23% labor force participation, and then rise up to 30%, slightly to 30% up to 2015. So between 70 and 75% of the women in Turkey are not part of the labor force. They are not even looking for a job. They are just not part of the labor force. So what can we say on this? If you look further, if we take into account the rural and urban case, basically, actually, well, in case of rural and urban men, you can see the ratio of labor force participation is actually almost the same. But in case of women, actually, the labor force participation of the woman is higher at around, well, between 30 and 40%, while labor force participation of women also getting close to the rural case, but it is between 20 and 30%. And actually, in rural areas, women were participating more on the labor force. That's because they were actually participating in the agriculture. So we will look further into this article in the next part. See you then.